Steve, where'd you go?
Right here, buddy.
There you go. Let me introduce these guys real quick. This is Steve and Jeff from Creatio, which is a local school for a lot of things, but audio. And I'd love to let them talk a little bit about the program they're putting on.
Thanks, John. My name is Jeff Lockhart. I'm the executive director of the Creatio School at Northwest University. We're not going to take too much of your time, but we're honored to be here and explain what's going on with that. We're really excited that here in Kirkland, which is not that far from where most of you live, is a program that in 6 months you can learn, get an audio certificate that's worth 15 college credits. You'll study Pro Tools, beginning recording, advanced recording, music industry business, licensing, publishing, social media and how to get music out and distribute it that way, live sound production, all on the weekends on Fridays and Saturdays, and just a great program. We've had a lot of people just go through it. We just graduated a class about a month ago, and we're really excited to let you know about that. We're going to be passing out some brochures during John's class, and I'm really excited to introduce my partner, Steve Smith. Steve's a 35-year music veteran. He's got 2 Grammys, several gold and platinum records. He's worked with Stevie Wonder, Garth Brooks, Stephen Curtis Chapman, DC Talk. He's written most of our curriculum, and just a great program here locally to make available to people who want to go deeper in some of the stuff and concepts you're learning this weekend and even get some college credit for it. So I'll introduce Steve and he'll tell you a little bit about that. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Jeff. One of the things we'd like to do, we'd like to thank Bruce and Matt for 10 years of CMS and for great instructors, talented instructors like John Mills. And the purpose of our program, for those of you who want to further your education, it's quite comprehensive. We have a very much a hands-on approach, and from the very beginning, we throw you into the deep end of the pool. Lots of hands-on experience, and if you guys have any questions, we have a booth in the hallway. And for those of you on the web, please call 425-889-5367. That's 425-889-5367 for more information. If you guys have any questions, please come see us. We have people who are going to pass out information cards if you're interested. And thank you very much, Mr. John Mills.
Thanks, guys. It really is a good program. I've known these guys for a few years and have heard some really great things from some of their current curriculum takers. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm John Mills. For those of you who don't know, I'm really not sure where to look because everybody's kind of around me, so I'm really not going to look at anybody, I guess. But I work for Morris Light and Sound. I'm the vice president of audio there, so I take care of getting accounts on the road. We are mostly a country music house, but over the years I have grown up in and worked with pretty much every Christian band who's been here and many others. And so I've cut my teeth in that world, and now I'm kind of in a new job. I guess Mom says I got a real job. I don't know. I'm kidding. So what I wanted to talk about today, the first thing I want to do before we go too in depth here is talk a little bit about what I'm going to do. The thing that I want to talk about is carving space and putting things in the mix. And the example I often use is if an artist is going to create a sculpture of an apple, let's say he's going to work in the medium of clay. He's going to start with a block of clay. It's going to be a square block of clay. And he's going to look at that, and he's going to say, in that block of clay, I see an apple. And he's not going to squish it, and he's not going to mold it and put it into a ball. And like my little 5-year-old, what she would do is she would roll a worm and stick it on top, and then kind of take another piece and make a leaf and poke it on there. And I would have to say, what is it, honey? A lot of times. And I think that's the mix we often do when we're not thinking the way I want to get you guys to think today. What I want you to think about is that block of clay and the apple that's in it, and I want to cut off the corners and get it smaller. And then we're going to cut away some stuff to reveal the stem and the leaf and the shape of the apple that's inside of it. Does that make sense? So that's kind of the goal of what we're going to do. Now, how do you do that, John? Well, the trick in my mind is to learn to hear the sounds you want to get rid of. Okay, I can look at a square or a cube and say to make it a ball, I need to cut off the corners, right? If I've got a kick drum and it sounds more like a basketball, I want to get the basketball out of it, right? Okay, if I've got a bass guitar and it's real boomy, bass should be bass and it should feel good, but it shouldn't be overpowering and just taking up too much space. So we want to take our sounds and get them smaller and get them into a space where they belong, focusing on the root of that thing. Okay, so if it's a kick drum, we want to focus on low end. If it's a snare drum, it's going to focus on mid-range. If it's a guitar, it's mid-range. If it's an acoustic, it might be some mid but a bunch of highs. okay? Not rocket science, what we're talking about here. So what I want to do is I've got Brenton Brown's tracks from early this morning, which is the first time I've used this software with this console. And the really cool thing is Jake showed up this morning with this software, loaded it on my computer, and in 5 minutes I have multi-tracks of Brenton's set this morning. And that comes free with this console, so shameless plug for Yamaha. Pretty cool. And in 2 minutes he showed me how to get it playing back. So I've currently got the ability to go kick, so we've got a virtual band. They're not there, and they're the best band because they're going to do whatever I ask them to do. I don't even need to buy them Starbucks, but they're not going to buy me Starbucks. Oh, hey, Ben, listen. That's your snare drum. It's almost on the beat. Oh, I'm kidding, man. I love you. Don't heckle a heckler. That was Ben for the web people that was playing on that earlier. So anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to go through this, and I'm going to start and just show you sounds. And I'm going to move fairly quickly because, quite honestly, the whole point of doing a good sound check would be to move quickly. I've already got gain established because we've already done that earlier. But if you're not and you're going to do it, you're going to, in a digital console, select it, and you're going to get your gain. So you can see, I don't know if you see my meters here or not, but basically, it doesn't matter. You know how to set gain. You're going to set it to get a good level. So I've got a good level on my kick drum. Can you guys hear me talking over that? It sounds really weird to me, so it's kind of freaking me out. But okay, so this kick drum to me, this is a Beta 52 kick in the hole of the kick drum. I have a second kick mic that's a 91 inside the kick. Neither of these two kick drum mics sound like a great kick to me. This is way too boomy and not enough attack. This is too much attack and sounds like a pillow. Well, what if I put them together? Still not good, is it? So let's do this. Instead of going, and I don't want to take a ton of time to go through all of the blending tricks or anything like that. Yeah, I do, because it's going to make sense, and a lot of you want to do this. And Jake, I'm distracted because Jake is reminding me. Jake is reminding me a lot of these tricks I'm doing, these tracks are running downstairs, down there somewhere, and you guys can go play with some of these techniques later. Okay, so the kick, to me, is a very important piece of the mix in rock music. So I spend a good deal of time trying to get a good kick sound, or a sound that I can manipulate a lot. So if I have a mic that's capturing this, and one that's capturing this, what do I need to do? Manipulate them together to make them work. Because then I have two pieces of paint, and I can make one a little brighter on a rockin' song, make it a little more muted on a soft song. So here's what we're going to do. Let's see, how do I have to do this so you can see? No, I don't think I can work that way. All right, I'll try and do it, and then I'll get out of the way. So there's two mics in the kick drum. If you think about the kick drum, here, let's see. Can you see me right here? So here's our kick drum. Let's see how to do this. All right, here's our kick drum. This is the front, this is the back. This is the part where he's hitting it, okay? I've got a mic way out here in the hole in the front of the kick drum, and then if you could look inside of it, I've got another one sitting in here that's real close. So this one might be 6 inches away. This one might be like a 1.5 feet away. So there's a good foot-ish difference between the two mics, which means the sound's arriving at different times. So on the M7, on the CL5, which I'm working on, there's a new parameter that a lot of digital desks don't have. It's called digital delay on the channel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delay the closer mic to the farther mic. And what I want you to notice, when I blend the two channels together, hear how it got thinner? This one has a decent amount of low end on it. This one has a lot of low end, but when I put the two up together, it's not as thick, right? You hear the low end going away. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to delay the inner mic. Oh, hang on. See that button right there? That says on.
I knew there was a trick here.
Yeah. Do you hear the tone changing? So I don't really like that. Let's try this one instead. Okay, there, now you can totally hear it. Hear it canceling out? It's changing the tone of it quite a bit. I may have labeled these incorrectly. I'm going to try one other thing real quick. This will make more sense to a lot of you. Let me show it to you this way. This button right here is your polarity button, not phase, polarity. Don't call it phase anymore, kids. Polarity button flips the positive to a negative. So it's the easiest one. If you don't have the delay, I'm going to take the time to show you the delay, but watch what happens when I do this. So here's the two mics together, okay? And I'm going to flip the polarity of the outside mic. Hear how it's much thicker sounding? That's canceling a lot of sounds of the two. That's adding them together. So we're going to run with that because now they blend together well. As I slide in the outside mic, it doesn't fall apart. If this is not like that, notice what happens as I slide the outside mic in. Nothing. So, simple point would be when you're blending two microphones, listen to like the lows or the low mids if you're using two mics on an instrument, and choose your polarity based on whichever one sounds fatter, whichever one has more low end in it. That's the closest to the right choice without taking an hour to show you the delaying of the signals and getting into a phase discussion. So here's what we're gonna do. This kick drum to me, here's one of the biggest tricks I teach everybody. I want you to grab an EQ. Actually, we're not gonna use that, we're gonna use this one. And I use a fairly moderate width on it, the Q, if you will. You see that? That's how much frequencies around the center one we're gonna go after. And I wanna go down here and sweep through this kick drum. The kick drum's down in this area in the register, right? Oh. See, this is where I failed again. That says acoustic. So we're not gonna do that on the acoustic. I've not had enough coffee. We're gonna go after this here, which is the kick drum. See that? Kick drum. Oh, I kinda like that. Let's go back up in here. Does that sound more like a basketball to you than a kick drum? Yep. So what I want you to do then is you went and realized at that point that that was the piece of that clay that I didn't like. And watch this. Whoops, where'd I go? You see what we just did there? That sounds much more like a kick drum, correct? So the reason I chose that, and I'll go faster once we establish this, was because I went through here and I found the spot where I thought it sounded the worst. And then I just go and cut it out. So,
Is there like a rule on how much?
nope. But he said, is there a rule on how much to cut? No, and as you notice, I'm not even telling you anything about what frequency we're working on here or anything like that, because that's not necessarily true on your kick drum or your kick drum or your kick drum. It just depends on what it sounds like. Find the junk, and get it out of the way. So this is us carving a hole in this kick drum. Okay, I'm gonna take one more pass at it here. I also don't like that. Okay, now I'm gonna do the next kick drum channel. What do I not like about this guy? In my opinion, there's some stuff going on up here in the mid-range. That's a ping pong ball. Okay, so now when I put these, let's go back to the first one and add the second. Okay, let's listen real quick here. Okay. Here's the two mics with no EQ. You hear how much tighter it is? So all I did in doing that was found some junk that I don't like. I didn't tell you what it was. Well, I look for a basketball and a ping pong ball, and I think in pitchers a lot. So I don't look at, I don't even know what it is, like 1.2K and 225 hertz. I would never think that in my mind. I will never look at a console and do that because I'm listening for something I don't want as opposed to looking for something. This, ladies and gentlemen, this thing right here, this screen is the worst thing that ever happened to sound. It's great because it gives us a visual feedback of what we're doing. The problem is you look at that and go, oh, that sounds like what I did last time. Then you think it sounds good when it doesn't necessarily sound good. And you'll hear me in some of my other classes, I'll say grab a knob and break it off. Not really, because we don't have to buy a new one. But you see me turning things pretty far. I'm not just doing like little, ooh, you hear much of that? Oh, listen with that. Oh, that sounds so good. No, you're not even hearing that. Watch, I'll show you. Anybody hear what I'm doing there? No, it's pointless, but you hear that? You hear that? That's what I'm saying when I'm saying grab it and break it off. Turn it till you hear it doing something. And if you don't like it, put it back. The beauty of this stuff is you can just turn it the other way. All right, let's move on to snare. Let me get my clock back up here real quick so I know how time we're going. Okay, so now snare again is another one that I use 2 mics on, and why do I do that? I do that because the snare drum has a snare on the bottom of it, and when you only put a top mic on it, the snare drum itself, top head, bottom head, down here underneath the snare drum is the little metal things. That's called the snare, which gives it the crunchy sound. That's a key piece of the instrument. It's subtle, but if it's not there, all you hear is the top head. It's just tone. Okay, it can sound fine, and I've done it many, many times where I have one mic on a snare. It's great, but I'll show you the magic. Let's get a good snare sound from the top first. Okay. Next thing I want to show you real quick, a lot of you guys just have a high pass filter, HPF, that is set at 80 hertz, like this guy. Especially if you're on analog boards, it's usually just a switch. I'll show you what it does here with the switch, and then I'll show you what the beauty of a sweepable one does. So watch this. This is just the snare mic. Cleans up a little of that bass guitar and the kick, yeah? But now watch this. If I move the frequency it's at, I like him, he says, wow. If I had one choice on a console and I had to give up some knobs, I would get rid of EQ and take high passes. Because what did that just do to the mix? Just cleaned it up like crazy. Because here's the thing to think about. That snare mic is hearing the bass and the kick at about, let's say, 3 feet different on the kick that's coming into it. And I don't know what's up there on the stage, maybe 15 feet, the bass is coming back. So if that mic is hearing bass guitar and you're thinking snare, you don't realize the bass is in it, and you put the bass up and it's blending a little bit, you're gonna have phase cancellation. So your snare sound, ironically, can change your bass if you're not thinking like this. So that's why I'm gonna clean that out. And what I tell people a lot is turn it up until you hear the low end change. So. Okay, like I said earlier, I'm doing a lot of country music these days, so I like a big fat snare drum sound. So I'm gonna, if I was doing a lot more poppy rock, I would do this. Country music snare is a little more like this. It's got a little more thickness to it. So we'll just kind of split the difference there, okay? Now, here's the bottom snare mic, and I will tell you right away, don't ever use this one by itself. It doesn't really sound like a snare, but think what we're trying to get is that crunchy sound. I don't care about the thud from that one, I care about the crunch. So we're gonna go after this guy. Okay, and then I'm gonna do the same thing I always do. I don't like that. Okay. So there's my top mic. bottom mic added in, and the bottom mic on and off. Hear the difference? Okay, everybody following? So anything I've done that's making anybody's brain hurt yet? Okay, yeah, the sound is not as hard as we make it out a lot of the times. It's just, honestly, it's just about getting the junk out of the way. So hi-hat mic. Huh, imagine that, it sounds just like a hi-hat now. Okay, moving on. Let's see if I can find some toms to zoom in on here. Here's some right here. Okay, so tom, oops, I'm missing where I'm at. Let me just change this loop real quick and loop this. See, this is much easier than interacting with a drummer. See, I didn't even have to ask him. I just told him I wanted to play his tom. Okay, so here's my tom mic, right? So I'm getting a lot of cymbals out of this, and I'm hearing a little bit of the leaking stuff, so let's get rid of some of this here. Okay, and let's find that mid-range stuff we don't like. I'm gonna say it's right there. So the difference, there's off, whoops, and on.
So would you try to get rid of the cymbal also?
It depends. What I would do here, he said, would I try to get rid of the cymbal as well? I'm gonna try it, but usually if I try to EQ the cymbal out, then the tom's gonna get real dark sounding. I would probably go back and think about using a gate. I'm not gonna have time to do that in this class, so let's try to EQ it out real quick. Yeah, that's not bad. Yeah. And here's something to think about. These magical 2 microphones that everybody puts over a drum kit, the overheads. I'm hearing a little bit of crack off the toms from that. So overhead mics, in my opinion, are not cymbal mics. They're drum kit mics, all right? So when we get to the overhead here in a second, I'm gonna get tom 2 real quick, which with the magic of cut and paste, I'm just gonna copy and paste the EQ from that one. It'll be close. Let's see if I just tom 2. Yeah. So close enough for now. So the overheads, we're gonna do this to these guys. Let's listen to them. Right? Okay. Notice how much snare is still in there. It's predominantly cymbals because the cymbals are closer to it, but there's a lot of snare. So if you think about the fact that the snare mic is 2 inches from the snare and the overhead mics are 3 feet above his head, or above the snare, we're gonna have interaction. So these couple of choices I made here were based a little bit on kind of making the snare sound a little less in there. So listen to the snare as you're listening to the overheads as I turn it on and off. Okay, follow what I'm doing there? All right, now let's put it all together. I'm going to start with kick and overheads. Adding snare. And then let's get a little bit more going on here besides that. Okay, is that a fair place to start? What I'm going to do in a minute when we're done with this is I'm going to store all the EQ choices we're making, save a scene, and then I'm going to go back and put all the EQs in, and we'll toggle between a mix that we spent time on EQ and a mix that had none, per se. Okay, let's see what bass guitar is doing for us. All right.
What was he playing?
What's that?
What sort of guitar was he playing?
One with 4 strings. He said, what kind of guitar was he playing? I said, I'm not sure. It's a bass with 4 strings. Hear that right there? Hear what that's doing to the room? Did you hear all of this stuff poke out all of a sudden when I took this out? Listen how much cleaner his notes are versus that. Okay, John, I don't understand because that's 100 hertz, which would be a fundamental of a bass guitar. Why, bass players, I know you're hating me right now, but why would I do this to your bass? Because it's about...
When you crank it up, it's clean.
Yeah, yeah, so when I turn it up, it's cleaner, yeah. And is anybody frustrated that I cut low end out of the bass? No, it's cleaner. So it's a bit of the room response. It might be the way his pickups are. There's a lot of different things that could be contributing to this. This is why I'm not going to tell you cut 100 hertz out of your bass to make it sound better. We swept it around in there and listened for what sounded bad and got it out of the way. And once we got it out of the way, everything became clear, right? So is it okay to cut bass out of a bass? Yes, because the bass is giving us too much. Now, bass players, could you fix that? Yeah, maybe, maybe not, but at this point, we don't have that choice to sit there and mess with it for a while. Some of it may be whether he's playing with a pick or his fingers. Okay, so we would need to listen a little more, but for the most part, that's a pretty bad sounding bass. It's boomy and not articulate, and it sounds like bass, but that sounds a whole lot more. I'll exaggerate it even more for you. I'm now hearing all the notes he's playing. I'm hearing the attack of his fingers. I'm hearing a lot. That's just taking up space. That's clean. You hear me say the word taking up space a lot. My ears have tiny little holes in the side of them, so they're only a certain diameter. Let's say they're as big around as my pinky. That bass guitar sounds like it's as big around as my fist without the EQ. So it's not going to fit into my ear canal, if you will. I think a lot about what fits in my head as I'm mixing. Does that feel like it's filling up my head? I like things that have space around them and have space. When it has space, it has room to put other things with it. So let's listen to our kick. And let's listen to our bass that we don't like with it off. And blend it. Okay? Now, when I kick this in, listen to what happens to the kick drum. Do you hear what's going on there? When I get that out of the way, the kick drum actually sounds bigger. I'm not touching the kick drum's EQ right now. Follow? So cleaning up the bass, which we did by very simply just finding a bad thing, actually made my kick sound better. Are we on to something here? Okay, coming back. let's move on to electric. Electric guitars, y'all know if you've heard my seminars before, I love to hate you guys. And there's a reason I do that, because electric guitar, especially the modern electric guitar, and I say modern jokingly, tongue-in-cheek, Jimi Hendrix modern, if you will, distortion guitar has a lot of harmonics. Harmonics are really interesting to our ear. That's why we often latch to electric guitar. The problem with this harmonics is there's a lot of them. And when there's a lot of them, they're in the way of a lot of other things. Predominantly, electric guitar is very heavy at 2.5K. At 2.5K, this is the last time I'll talk about numbers, your ear is resonant at 2.5K, which means that your ear automatically, because of the way it's designed, amplifies that sound. Why does it do that? It does that because, I don't know, I believe in a creator that thought about how to build us, and when he built us, he tried to put things into us that made sense to make things work better, and all of your consonants, all of the diction in your vocals are in that range. Okay, so if I want to hear speaking, or, I don't know, the Word of God, I need to be able to hear those tones. Okay? So, that's why I love to hate you guys, because guitar players, you fill up that hole, and I don't have room for the vocal. So what I do is I'm going to show you this. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn it up a little bit. Don't plug your ears. I'm not going to leave it there long, but I want to turn it up to a point where you guys kind of go, that's a little loud. Okay? Let me find a spot where Scotty's playing something. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is our high pass filter, real quick, clean that up. Okay, now let me show you 2.5K. Let me show you our little friend here. Let's just set him right here and watch this. Okay, that's the frequency you don't like. I can just tell you that right now. That's a number you don't like. It's between 2 and 3K all the time. So, now when we're down into 1.5K, that doesn't sound good, but it doesn't hurt, right? Anything from here up, watch what happens. So you see what's happening there? So if we're going to do a concert where we like big, loud guitars, can we have a lot of that in this guitar? No. But, guitar players, I don't want to take out your notes there because that's where a lot of your good stuff is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you real quick how to harmonically manipulate sound. This is one time in Christianity we can manipulate things. Sorry, side joke. So I'm going to sweep through there, find the one that's the most offensive to me. And then I'm going to cut it out. Okay? Here's the thing, guitar players, I know you're cringing right now. You hate me. That made the tone go away and I lost some of the notes, right? But it's going to let me turn it up louder. Let me show you what happens. It's going to hurt a little bit again. Okay, what's happening there, as I turned it up 3 times as loud as I had it earlier, is these guys called Fletcher Munson. They studied our ears and how we hear. When you get up to a certain level, your ear hears differently. Okay, I'm not going to go into really what all that means or how it happens, but basically, again, 2.5K in that range changes as you turn volume up. So when I go for a guitar solo, that's why guitar solos often hurt. So I'm going to take this out. I'm not going to take this much out, but let me show you the trick here. You heard that. It's at 2.24K. I'm just going to, because I'm not good at math, I'm going to make that, where's my button? I'm going to make it 2.5 just so that I can add easily. So 2.5 times 2 would be 5. So I'm going to take this filter, and I'm going to do the opposite thing at 5K right there. Okay? What I've done is I've taken this harmonic region out of the guitar and put it here. So I've basically went, hey, hey, these aren't the droids you're looking for. I moved them over here. So watch what happens now. Okay? So you can see that by just shifting stuff out of that range where I'm going to want to put a vocal, see now I'm starting to carve based on something I'm going to need later. I've moved it, I got all your harmonics back, and your notes just moved up a little bit perceptually. Not really, but it perceived, you still hear the notes up there with that, right? Does that make sense, everybody? Okay. Okay.
So you wouldn't do the same thing at 1.25 and bump it a bit too?
I might. Just depends. He asked if I would do the same thing at 1.25. Not necessarily, because I'm okay with the sounds I'm hearing down in here right now. If I wanted to fill it up more, but we're going to have a problem if we put a bunch of 1K in there too. That's a lot of where Brenton's voice is when we get to him in a minute. And I'm kind of thinking where I'm going as I'm making some of these choices. Okay, acoustic guitar. I love to hate some acoustic guitar. I love an acoustic guitar mic'd. Trouble is, in a rock setting with a mic, we can't make it sound like an acoustic guitar. So we use the awesome little device that somebody invented called the piezo pickup that's down at the bridge. The bridge is where the strings meet the body of the guitar. Then we made this thing out of ceramic, which apparently is good for the transducer to be able to do it. I think it sounds like, I don't know, hammered tin. And so what do? That doesn't, if you listen to Brenton's guitar acoustically, like an acoustic guitar was meant to be, it sounds rich and full. You hear the wood tone of the guitar. You don't hear this thing that's going on because of the way the pickup works. We have to use the pickup because it's not a microphone, so therefore it won't feed back. Okay? It can, but that's a whole other story. So what I want to do is look for an acoustic guitar sound that is the most annoying version of an acoustic guitar sound possible. So we're going to sweep and listen for that. And as always, the band stops as soon as you want to start, don't they?
Keep going, please.
Okay, see what I did? I basically swept, found some things I didn't like, got rid of them. When I kick that in and out, and the EQ goes in and out, what do you think? One of them has some space around it, and one of them is just filling my ear canal up, and it's got no room. Follow?
So John,
Yes.
you're only cutting.
Mm-hmm.
You're never adding, and you know it's something you hear a lot. You know, in churches, small churches who aren't trained on the first. Is you want a little bit more bass, you want a little more top, and you end up adding instead of subtracting. And
Yep.
All you're doing is subtracting. Is that all you pretty much ever do?
Yes, and what he asked for those of you on the web and stuff that can't hear, he said, I'm only subtracting. 99%, I did boost a little on the electric a minute ago, but for the most part, you're right, I'm only subtracting, because I'm going back to that thought process of the block of clay. If I want to make an apple, and the apple is supposed to be this big, I got to cut the stuff away from around it. If I try to make the apple by adding clay to the sides of it, of a cube, to make it, it's going to be bigger, take up too much space, but it's also not going to look as much like an apple, because I'm pushing it on there, I'm having to mold it and squish it, as opposed to just kind of carving it away to get it to really look and sound more like what we're trying for. So the best rule of thumb is cut and boost if you have to. Okay, if you boost 2.5 on a vocal to make it cut through the mix, I'll punch you in the face. It's the worst thing you can do because it doesn't sound natural. When we get to Brenton's voice, I'll show you that in a minute. If we boost it, we could do the opposite EQs. I wish I could do two different, well, I could do a compare. We'll try that in a second. But a boost of 2K sounds horrible to your ears versus a cut of the things around it to reveal the thing you want to hear, okay? So here's my acoustic. Where'd he go? Where'd he go? Where'd he go? Okay, I'm going to add that to the rest of the mix. Okay, everybody okay with that? All right, now let's take a listen to vocals. This is a can of worms, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody knows this. Vocals are the most important thing we do, and oftentimes are foiled by the person singing. And I don't mean that like they're not good at what they do, but you are used to hearing a voice every day. That is what your ear knows. You know someone's voice. When you hear your wife's voice or you hear your kid's little cry, your ear picks it up and it knows exactly the tone of it. When we amplify a voice through a microphone and through a set of speakers and introduce room acoustics at a loud volume, it is very, 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 very difficult to make it sound natural. Okay? We're forgiving on all of these other instruments because they're instruments, but your brain is very in tune to the voice. So what I'm about to show you is important to the point of what you want to focus on a vocal is getting the vocal clean. You're never going to make it sound perfect. I don't care how expensive of a mic, speaker, everything. I'm standing here listening to my voice echo around this room and it sounds incredibly bad to me. You guys can hear me because you're not hearing my voice like I hear it in my head. So a vocalist has the same problem a lot of the times. They hear their head tone acoustically, and then they hear their microphone. So a lot of times they will do things with their microphone to try to manipulate that to a place that works for their tone of their head and how they want to hear it. We can't get into that class today, but basically our job is to do the opposite. And so whatever they're doing to correct so they're comfortable, and Brenton's happy with what he hears in his ears, and he's able to sing and not push too hard in that. Once he's happy with what he's getting, then I'll do something different to make myself happy, okay? So I will tell you, yes, vocalists, eat the mic. Keep it in your face. If you're gonna hit a huge note, pull it back a little bit. But a 2-foot pull on the microphone, it's gone, okay? A 2-inch pull can make a big difference. Like my little headset mic here, I've got it, I don't know, about 2 fingers away from my face right now. Let me pull it away 4 fingers, okay? So I've just pulled it 4. So I've moved from 1 inch to 2 inches. So just moving it 1 inch back towards my face, listen how much louder that got. Now picture me singing and picture it being loud and picture me moving it 6 inches, okay? So you guys need to work with your mics to make sure you're giving me something. I don't want to compress you. I don't want to do anything to manipulate you. I want to do the best I can, but you got to get it there for me. So garbage in, garbage out, copy. All right, here's Brenton. Big difference with that one thing. Here's the problem I have for analog sound companies, if you're paying attention. This frequency set at 80 does almost nothing. They call it the rumble filter. Okay, a lot of the times, the problem is the slope that they use, and this is not the Yamaha thing. I'm talking about like your Mackeys or your Behringer little soundboards that just have the button. It's the same thing, and this is what it does. he says it's almost imperceptible. Maybe some stuff down in like 30 cycles, I'm hearing some clean up a little bit, but nothing that's useful. That button is a waste of real estate, electronics, and cost on analog desks to me. They can fix it very simply. The human voice, where you liked it just a minute ago, is 150, 160 hertz. Watch what this does. Okay, so analog soundboard guys, just make that 160 instead of 80. I'd be happy, and you'd have a button that was useful instead of one I paid for that doesn't do anything. And now on a kick drum or bass guitar, it would do more, obviously, but it's not as useful in my opinion. So anyway, that's what I did right there. That's my first choice. So now, let's do this again, and we'll come after some mid-range stuff on him.
We welcome you here, Lord Jesus. Come and reign among us. We welcome you here, Lord Jesus. Come and reign among us. We welcome you here, Lord Jesus.
You agree with that choice? Okay.
Amen. Come and reign among us. We welcome you here, Lord Jesus. Come and reign among us. We welcome you here, Lord Jesus. Come and reign among us.
Not a lot difference, yes? Okay. When I put it, excuse me, let me make it a little more drastic. When I put this in the mix in a second, I'll show you the difference of what we did when we found those 2 points right there. So let's just get some electric. So what I'm wanting you to see there is when I kick it in, he gets louder, but he doesn't sound better, okay? It's filling up the mix. So we're doing the same thing on him. It's making his voice take up too much. I did not change the volume on his voice when I was doing that in and out. This time I will, and I'll show you, I'll basically make up for the difference of the two and show you how he fits better. You hear the difference? I was riding the gain so you didn't hear the gain change, but this one with the EQ in has space around the electric and the acoustic. Okay, so again, it's the same concept of we're just trying to get stuff out of his voice that's annoying. Well, interestingly enough, I took some 2K out of his voice. What happens if I just go ahead and put that back in there? Let's play that trick. I've heard many things on the web. You guys believe everything you read on the web, right? It says, you know, just add a little 2K to your vocal to make it cut through the mix. Okay, so is it cutting out of the mix? Yeah, is it cutting a hole in my eardrum? Yeah. So it doesn't sound good to boost. And here's why. I was baiting you for a minute on that. Your ear hears a boost twice as quickly as it hears a cut. So you can cut for days and it doesn't sound as musically detrimental as it does if you boost a little bit. So when you boost specifically for a reason and cut for the same reason. Okay, so you're gonna cut to get it out of the way and then boosting. The boosting I do is usually to manipulate a harmonic. I want not to make it cut, not to do anything, it's to move something. So if I cut, like, okay, for instance, let's take Brenton real quick here. Let's put that cut in at 2K, and it's at 2.24, so let's just do a little boost. Let's just talk about this harmonic thing again. This doesn't totally work on vocals, but it can. And we'll put that one at the opposite at 4.5. Okay?
We welcome you here, Lord Jesus. Come and reign among us. We welcome you here, Lord Jesus.
I'm trying to run it like a Etch-a-Sketch.
Come and reign among us. We welcome you here, Lord Jesus. Come.
Hear how it sounds tonally about the same, but it feels almost like he steps up higher in the mix. Same idea with that electric. What mic was on? It's a 58. He said what mic was on him. A lot of times, I'll tell you the truth, guys, you don't need to spend money on an expensive mic. Brenton came out, he was on the KSM-9 this morning, which is a killer vocal mic. It's about a $700 vocal mic. And he just wasn't getting happy. And he's like, John, can we change it to a 58? And I was like, yeah, let's try it. And we tried it, and all of us went, oh, that's better. But other people this weekend, we've done the same thing, and it's been the opposite. So it's, again, right paintbrush. Okay? All right. So let's put this thing together real quick. I'm going to do a rough mix. We're running about 10 or 15 minutes left. I want to put a rough mix together with it with these choices we've made right now. Let me fix Brenton here real quick because that's not what we asked for. Okay? I'm going to put it together, and I'm going to save it, and then we're going to delete the EQ. So just let me mess with this for a second. Okay, so everybody okay with that? For not spending a whole lot more time on it? Let me store this. Store. Okay, now I'm gonna store it here, and we're gonna call this one no EQ. And this one I'm gonna go in and just turn all our EQs off. Follow what I'm doing, everybody? We're going to pretend that we just mixed it in reverse. Okay, and now that we did that, I'm actually going to save it there. Store. Okay, and let me pause. I need to redo these real quick because I didn't leave my volumes on. Store, yes, recall on. Okay, so here's our mix. Let's go with the one we just ended on, because that's what we're familiar with. See how you can tell what I'm doing here. Okay, can you see that highlighting there? That one says EQ, that one says no EQ. All right, so we're going to start with the EQ'd one. I'm going to play it, and then I'm just going to toggle between the two.
When we see you find strength to face the day.
So we're not going to take a whole lot more time to do it. I wanted to open it up for a few questions, but basically see the concept is get the garbage out of the way and everything becomes cleaner. I would go in and do some more now if I had time and the band wasn't mad at me for taking an hour to do sound check, or 47 minutes according to my clock. But you get the point? Okay. Anybody got questions? Yeah, over here. Oh, you're waving, fine. I can't see, so yeah, somebody just, there you go.
It seemed like you were using a pretty wide cue as you went through there. Is that typically what you do, is that wide?
He said he was using a typically pretty wide cue, and what he's talking about, if you're not positive of that, is when I was boosting things, that's a narrow cue, that's a wide cue. This is a crazy cue. I'm doing it based a little bit on where I am. So if you noticed, I was taking out smaller things down here and wider things up here. There's more musical notes happening in this area, so I don't want to do this a lot because I would affect only one note if I did that. Okay, I want to affect the notes around it in the general range of the instrument, not necessarily. If you see me do something like this, that's probably because that one note has a problem with his guitar maybe, and it's just poking out like crazy for some reason. Okay, next. Yeah, what you got?
Does that same principle apply to like the system EQ, like your room EQ?
He said, would the same principle apply to a system EQ? Carefully, I would say yes. If you've had your room professionally tuned, you shouldn't need to do that. But one of the first things I do when I come into a system that was professionally tuned, even this weekend, the guys from eView brought this system, sounded great out of the box. But I want things that might not just necessarily be flat, or might not be what they went for when they tuned it. So I put on a CD I know real well, and I swept through it, and I was like, what's poking out in here that I don't like? And I did a couple of little things to the system that were a bit more of the artist side of things than the technically correct side of things.
We
Okay.
had a drive rack that was so messed up that it was hurting its wavelength.
Yeah, a lot of the times that's a good point. He said they had a system processor that was basically hurting them more than anything. Here's the quick trick to figure that out. Look down at the EQ on all of your channels and your individual channel strips. If you see you're cutting 100 hertz out of everything, maybe cut a little 100 hertz out of the whole system, and then relax your channel strip EQs. If you're noticing, man, I'm cutting 2.5K out of everything, even my CD, when I play my CD back, well, maybe your system's not really been tuned well. I mean, my example on that would be if you're teaching a class, and it's a spelling class, and we erase the chalkboard, and then algebra comes in next, and algebra uses letters too, but there's still some on the board a little bit, you can see them some. A good, well-tuned system is like getting a wet rag and cleaning the chalkboard. It's now ready to do what you want to do, so when you manipulate a button on your console, the system should respond. Yeah, cool. Next, yeah, what you got? As people walk in, do acoustics change? Yes. Okay, applying some of this stuff while the service is going on. Yeah, here's the thing. In a room of this size, this is a 5,000 seat church. 5,000 people coming here are going to change it a little bit. 500 people, probably going to do nothing to the sound. 500 people in a 500 seat church, majorly going to change the sound. 200 people in a 500 seat room are going to change the sound. I think of people, I love y'all, but I think y'all is like these big wet bags of water, because wet bags of water are the best acoustic material you can have. It sucks up sound. So what I'll typically do is I will run sound check quite a bit louder than I will do service, so that I know what the room is doing. Because then when I come back down, let's say even just like 3 or 4 dB louder than I might actually run, when the people come in, they're going to soften it a little bit more. So if you were to listen to that statement that I just said, I'm going to run it louder, I'm also going to make EQ choices in an empty room a little bit brighter if I know the room's going to fill up. Here, my sound checks here are pretty typically, it is what it is, it's going to be what it was, because there's not enough people changing the sound. But in a smaller room, yes, I would make choices to be a little bit more brighter, and it's different in every room. I don't go back after a system EQ a lot during people know people, but I might go after the electric, I might go after the acoustic, some things like that, you know, just to see. So, anybody else?
In the previous session, you basically said that you don't want to apply all these studio rules when you're doing a live mix. What about the reverse? A bunch of the stuff you showed us here for basic mixing in the studio.
Oh, okay, sure. He said in my last session, I said you don't necessarily want to apply a lot of the studio tricks to live. That statement was based on compression, And I think a lot of live mixes are trying to do too much compression, and we suck the life out of the mix. That's my point. Even in recordings these days, there's no life left in them. So my statement about that was more about the compression. The EQ stuff is very, very similar. So his question was basically, would you use some of these techniques I just showed you in the studio? Yeah, it's the same idea, because here's the deal. What I'm showing you here, and I do another class sometimes on compression, it's the same kind of idea. I'm showing you how to hear what sounds bad. All I'm doing is going, this is what you don't like, and get rid of it. So yeah, so in a compression thing, if you're trying to learn compression, grab that threshold knob, break it off, compress the snot out of it, and listen to what it sounds like. Compression is very, very hard to hear, and when compression is right, you don't hear it. So, you know, it's hard to figure out. So yeah, next. Anybody? Yep. Okay, that's a great and loaded question. He said, how much am I changing after sound check? If it's broken, fix it, would be my response. I would never change something if the band was not playing. I.e., I've had many people say, you know, don't worry about it, I'll fix that after you guys are done. And so you go make a change a gain setting or change an EQ setting because you're like, oh, you know, I wanted a little less 200 hertz in that snare drum. Let me just go do that now. I don't ever make those choices, and I say, please do not make those choices unless you hear it. Because you make it, you're making it arbitrarily. You don't know. I mean, that's like saying put some blue paint on the canvas, but wait till we see the rest of the picture first and then add it to the first layer. It's unrelational. It's like apples and insurance. You know, you need to make that choice based on what's happening. And a lot of times, guys, especially if you're one console feeding the house and the stage, do you even know if your EQ changes are affecting the monitors on the stage? If you don't, you better figure it out, because that might be where half the frustration is. If you make a change, especially some of these things I just did here on a vocal while she's singing, and she hears that, she's gonna shoot you. So, you know what I'm saying? And be very careful doing some of these things with live monitors or a live microphone. I'm easy to do this right now because it's playback. But some of these boosts I did and I showed you here is gonna, you know, make the speakers squeal and you'll blow something up, so be careful. In general, I do not make choices after sound check unless I get into service. I might write down snare question mark, BGV2 question mark, and put a note on my desk, and then once the service starts, oh yeah, oh yeah, that's right, I didn't like that at the end of sound check. I don't make choices to change things once the band is left, because when they come back in, it changed for them. And then they're like, why does everything sound different? Well, it sounds different because there's now people in the room. It sounds different because the band's now playing with adrenaline. All of those things. So I always I'm a live sound engineer. I make choices live. Oh, different songs? Yes, hands down. Especially when I know I'm not sending them EQ choices. Oh yeah, if you watch me tonight, I mean, any of y'all feel free to gather around if you can to see what's going on when we're mixing. Yeah, because it changes. I mean, the guitar player hits a patch I didn't hear before. The keyboard player pulls out a B3 that we never even sound checked, you know. Yeah, this is guerrilla warfare. You just gotta respond to things sometimes and fix it. Yeah, and here's a good trick I'll do a lot of times. If, let's say, a glockenspiel comes out, and I didn't even know we were gonna use a glockenspiel, and I don't even know what a glockenspiel is now that I say that, but it comes out on stage, and I'm like, oh gosh, I don't know what to do about that. I hope somebody knows where to put the mic on it. But I gotta make it louder because everybody just watched it walk on stage, and it's gonna be expected in the mix. So I will, a lot of the times, turn it up a little louder, not hurtfully loud, but a little louder than you expect it to be. A, so you see that I saw it, but B, I'm tricking you. I'm putting it out there, and I'm gonna do a real quick EQ on it. You might even hear me tonight in some of the things. I'll push it out, I'll sweep through it real quick, get it out, and in about 2 seconds, I've made an EQ choice and put it back in the mix, right? But then you forgive me for those 2 seconds, because quite honestly, those aren't the droids you're looking for. I tricked you, and now it's where it belongs, and you forgot about it. So, copy?
Are you doing any more sessions today?
I'm not teaching any more sessions today, no. This is the last one for me. Yep. Do I use buses? That's a good question. I use buses when I get real tricky, when I'm trying to create some real fun things like parallel compression, double busing, things like that. Typically live, I use VCAs, or on a digital console, a DCA, which is different than a bus. On smaller analog boards, for those of you who don't know, a bus is I want to route all of my background vocalists through a fader and then do something to that one fader. On a digital board, you don't necessarily have to route the audio through it, you can just control it. So it's, in a sense, it's like me grabbing the drum kit and turning the drum kit mics all up and down with one set of hands. with this fader right here. If I were to move this fader, this is my drum kit, it's like me going like this with all the drum channels. So yes, I do it, but I don't do it with an actual bus. I do it with a VCA. Yep.
So on an analog board,
Yes.
you start, if you're going to pull things out, you start everybody at straight up 0 and then just pull down, cut out.
I'm not sure I totally understand your question.
You have your high, your high mid, your low mid, and your lows. If you're cutting out,
Yes, I'll start with them all at noon, at 0, right? I'll listen to the sound, and then I'm going to make subtractive choices first.
Okay.
And then if it needs something after I've done a bunch of that, I might make a boost. But I don't like to boost because it ends up sounding faker.
correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
We got about 1 more minute. Anybody got another question?
I've got a Mackie,
Yeah.
ELP, whatever, yada, yada, yada.
Okay.
Okay, I've got sweep on my mid-range.
Yep.
I have no sweep on my highs or my lows. When I change an EQ, I'm just stuck with what I'm stuck with, right?
Yeah, in a sense. So your fixed frequency, he said he has a Mackie that only has 1 sweepable parametric. Yeah, and that's a bummer. I know, it is, because once you see me do this, it's like, oh, I just need more. Well, now that I have 4 on this, I wish I had 8, so it's always going to be something, right? But yeah, what I'll do a lot of the times is I will take that 1, because if you notice, like even on this with my 58 here, I really only did 1 cut on it. I did a little bit at 2K, but I ended up just settling on that. So I'll take that mid-range and I'll boost it and I'll sweep it because that's the one that's going to make my best choice. And a lot of the times, yeah, in the mids is where, yeah, the mids is where everything falls apart and everything comes together. Yeah. So, yep. Yep. All right. Thanks, guys, for coming. We need to wrap up and move on to our next thing here. So I appreciate y'all. Thanks.